You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Hey there, Rachel here. I am so glad that you all are listening to and enjoying the podcast. We've been getting some great feedback. I love to hear from y'all, so please send me a message letting me know which episodes are your favorites and what you want to hear more of in the future. I also want to share with you some exciting news. I have a free live masterclass for you. I will be sharing 3 secrets to transform your counseling program to increase your impact and get the recognition you deserve. Again, this is live and you don't want to miss it, so be sure to sign up today. You can sign up at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com. Okay, let's dive in. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So today I want to get personal with you and just share some stories that I have experienced as a school counselor. I want to share with you 5 things that I wish I knew when I first started counseling. Okay, so, you learn so much within 1 year. Even if you've been counseling 20 years, I'm sure you're still constantly learning and growing, right? As we should be. We are lifelong learners and we're constantly trying to tweak our craft. But there are a few things that would have saved me a lot of headache and stress in the beginning, and I want to share them with you in case you are experiencing these same pain points and struggles. Okay, number 1, you don't have to check your emails after hours. What? This is a shocker, right? You've heard me say it. Please don't check your emails after hours. Those nights and weekends are for you and your family and your personal time, or I don't care what you do on them, but it's not check your work email, right? So I used to do this. I used to have it on my phone, which I'm still not anti having your work email on your phone as long as you can set some boundaries around checking it and definitely disable notifications. But I want to share a story with you where having my work email on my phone and checking it after hours was not a good situation. So this is actually before my school counseling job, but when I was doing, the academic and counseling specialist position at an educational consulting company, and we worked really closely with these families, and we're having, weekly, sometimes even daily communication with the parents. And I had a parent of a student who was just kind of difficult to work with. Anyways, you maybe have experienced some parents like that. And she sent me a really nasty email, after hours. And then I checked it. I was laying in bed about to go to bed. So it's 10 p.m. And I checked it and I read it on my phone. And then I started crying, and it was this whole thing. And I felt really stressed. And I was all, do I reply? When do I reply? And I couldn't stop thinking about it. Here's the thing. I was going to get that email the next morning anyways when I arrived to work, and I had to deal with it, right? I had to, respond to her concerns and fix the situation. But checking it at nighttime did me no good. It actually got me less sleep, more stress, and my poor husband had to listen to this whole situation and how stressed I was about it. And those feelings make you feel burnt out over time. The more and more that you have these things, it's like you can never turn off, right? By not setting a direct stop time to stop checking your email, it's constantly buzzing in the background, and you have these conversations and unfinished business going on in your head, and you can't truly unwind and separate your work from your personal life. And this is something that's especially a problem if you're working from home this year. If you're working virtually and doing virtual counseling, then it's even harder and more difficult to draw that boundary. But remember, boundaries prevent burnout. It is very important that you establish clear professional boundaries to avoid burnout. Having those situations come up where you're feeling all stressed and frazzled on nights or on the weekends, over time, those will lead to burnout. And when you are burnout, you cannot deliver your best self and serve your students. They always say you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if you're burnout, your cup is empty. So to refill that cup, we need to set some boundaries. That's something I really wish I knew early on. The second thing I wish I knew early on was to hold myself accountable with an organized caseload. So I felt like I knew all the moving parts of where everything was. I wasn't super organized, but I felt like I had a handle on everything. But this really came back to bite me because I had a student who I was going to see, and then they were referred to me, and I had been seeing them for a month or something in a small group. I think I'd even done some individual check-ins. Well, then and we're making progress. The student likes coming to me. Everything seemed fine. But then the principal contacts me because there's an angry parent who is like, why is my son seeing the counselor? Unfortunately, we do have that stigma sometimes of being like a negative thing when we're definitely a positive thing, but that's another episode. But this angry parent was very upset that her son was receiving counseling services, and she said she didn't know. And I'm immediately like embarrassed and nervous, and, I feel really bad. And I could have sworn that I had a permission slip from this child. Of course, I couldn't locate it because my office is a mess. I don't have any digital record of it. And it was not a good situation. I mean, it wasn't like mandatory to have a permission slip because it was a public school and I was just providing a preventative service. But it was still, I always like to have permission slips. I always like to be in good communication with parents on what's going on. And so this was not a good situation. It made me look bad to the parent. It made me look bad to the principal. And then the parent, was very sour about the situation and removed the child from the services. And so that was the whole point. The kid didn't even get the counseling services that we all thought he needed. And perhaps the parent would have been on board had I communicated more clearly in the beginning. Now, I wasn't trying to keep anything from the parent. I had good intentions. This was just one of like 60 kids I was seeing, and I could have sworn I had a permission slip. I couldn't locate it. By having an organized caseload, I could have prevented this problem. By having my caseload spreadsheet organized with accompanying paper slips that I have it all matched up, I would have said, oh, let me check. I know I have this. And I could have looked, I have a checkbox here that he turned it in on this date. Let me go find it in the file. Here it is alphabetically right here. Or if I didn't have a permission slip, I wouldn't have been seeing him. I would have contacted the parent and got permission before I saw the child. So that would have saved me so much stress. Like, that was not an ideal situation, and I felt really unprofessional and that I really did a disservice to the student and the family. So that is something I wish I would have known when I first started counseling, that I needed an organized caseload. The third thing I wish I would have known was that data supports your gut feeling. So what I mean by this is, a lot of times I would meet with students and I would feel like they just needed to talk, right? I felt like we just needed to build rapport and play a game or do a puzzle, and they just needed some space to open up and an adult they could trust to work through a problem. But I also felt the need to show others that we were doing something tangible, so that way they weren't like, oh, the counselor only does puzzles or only colors with the kids. There was a phase where I did a lot of mandala coloring with the kids, and it was great, and we'd have some really great conversations. But to the outside perspective, it looked like we were just coloring, and they're like, why are they missing math to color mandalas with Miss Rachel? So maybe you can relate to this situation. And I felt this need I knew that I should trust my gut, and I knew this is what the kids needed. But at the same time, I felt like I should be printing out worksheets and doing cut and paste things, or at least doing something to show for why we were meeting. But here's the thing. Data fills this need. Data tracking can support your gut. So you can still do those mandalas and build the rapport and have those conversations, but as long as you're measuring student progress and measuring data and sending out behavior surveys, then it doesn't really matter to outside perspectives of what you're doing during the sessions, because you're proving the results and you know that you're doing the right thing. So data can support your gut. I wish I knew that when I started. The fourth thing I wish I knew is that I'm not alone. I was the only counselor split between 2 school sites. So I felt like I was on my own island. I did not have other counselors at my site to collaborate with. Fortunately, we had a wonderful district counselors meeting, and we would meet, I believe it was once a week or twice a month. I don't know. And all the counselors would meet. So there were counselors at other sites, just not at my site. And this was an awesome time for us to collaborate. And I so appreciated, this was the only school I worked at that had this type of meeting, where just the counselors got together this often. And I so appreciated that, because it really helped me to bounce ideas off each other, and we could brainstorm. Some counselors had been at other sites before, so they had advice when it came to working with a certain population or a certain family. It was just such a good experience to know that I wasn't alone. Thankfully, that meeting was a lifesaver for me, but maybe you don't have that at your district. Maybe you truly are the only one, and if you're virtual, you may feel more isolated than ever. So that is why I started joining some Facebook groups and why I now host a Facebook group that I would love you to join, Bright Future School Counselors. It's on Facebook. You can join us over there. There's a few thousand of us in there. But there's some great groups out there for school counselors. I encourage you to find your people and to find your little space virtually, if not in person, where you can collaborate. It is important for you to feel supported and that you are not alone. And the final thing I wish I knew when I first started counseling was that being new doesn't mean you can't make big changes. So sometimes we feel that you have to be in the field for many years, or you have to have a certain number of degrees or a certain number of qualifications before you can make some real change and a real difference at your school site, or before you can be respected by your colleagues and peers. But that is simply not the case. I created an end-of-the-year report my first year as a counselor, and I love end-of-the-year report. It's just a space where you can showcase all of the data that you've been collecting, and you can really show not only how your students have improved, but how many students you've served and the services that you've provided through class lessons and character education activities, professional developments that you've attended, anything like that. I created one. I wasn't asked to, but I had seen one on Pinterest or online somewhere and decided that I wanted to do one. So I made one, turned it into my principal. He was so impressed that he sent it on to the superintendent. And then the superintendent reached out to me directly and just, congratulated me and said thank you for providing this information, and then made it a requirement going forward from counselors. So now that I say that out loud, the other counselors were probably like, thanks, we didn't want one more thing on our plate. No, but actually it was a great thing because it really showed the value and worth of our counseling program. I think she was literally shocked at how much impact we were having. And not just me at my site, but just the counseling program in general. So I was so thankful for that experience. And as a first-year counselor, having the superintendent reach out to me directly was pretty cool. Humble brag, not going to lie. Also, our support services director, the first year I was counseling, said, wait, how long have you been working here again? He thought I had been working there for multiple years. He's like, oh, I thought you'd been here 2 or 3 years, when it was my first year. And it's because I was doing big things. I'm not trying to brag on myself here. I'm just saying the programs in general. Me and the other counselors were really working to showcase our programs, to show what we were doing, and we weren't afraid to kind of stir things up and try new things and implement new ideas and strategies with our kiddos. And it obviously came across good because the student support services director thought I had been there a couple years. In my head, I'm new and messing up everything because I'm not very confident yet because it was my first year. But here, he thought I had been doing it for a while and was very impressed with my experiences. So it's almost that fake it till you make it mentality. Get in there, do things you don't feel ready for, because it's when we put ourselves in situations that we're not, quote, ready for, that sometimes we implement the most change. So being new doesn't mean that you cannot make big changes. So does this sound familiar to you? If you can relate to any of these feelings, then you're going to love a free live training that I'm doing. Join me live in a masterclass where I'm going to share with you 3 secrets to transform your counseling program to increase your impact and get the recognition you deserve. I'm really excited about this. It is live, so I really encourage you, sign up, join me. It's going to be fun. I have a few little prize things as well. You can sign up at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com. Okay, talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.